Hey guys, today I'm going to be taking you through the steps I took to get to this state in a parkour game using Coplay MCP, specifically running with Claude Code, and I'll be taking you through all the steps I took using a pre-recorded video that I made. Okay, so here you can see running Claude Code here separately, and it's already collected with Coplay MCP. There is a tutorial video on how to do it, and in the documents you can follow those steps. And so this is set up. So here I'm giving it the first prompt to set up the movement, the mantling, and then the like jump logic for this. So here it's starting to connect to the project first, get all the settings, sets up the task list for it, and then here you can see the task list, creates the scripts, setting up more scripts, implementing the logic behind the jumping, fixing scripts that it found errors in. Now it's going to run this scene to test and check the logs, and then create a state system to detect in what state, the idle state, the movement state, to properly trigger certain actions and events. Stops the game. Found errors in the input system. It's fixing that. Updated the script. Now it's going to test the scene again, check the logs. If there's anything wrong. Now it's creating the player controller script, which does the movement, the input system takes from the input system for the movement, the jumping, all that logic. It's going to update the player controller because it found problems with the input again. Test it again for the logs. Now it's going to create a game object for the player. Completed that task, didn't find issues. And then here is the end, everything it did. In the scene, now it's going to set up everything in the scene for it. Setting up in the scene, and you can see it's setting up all the layers and the tag system that it created for all the objects to test said parkour logic, the mantling, the wall running, and then just the movement, speed-based movement. And then next part, I asked her to set up the camera system, where it has FOV-based cameras, movement-based FOV. So when the faster you move, the bigger the FOV dynamic. It will also detect when it's going to clip into a wall and make sure it doesn't clip through it. And it's also the logic of how the camera moves around the player. Here you can see it setting up the task list, import the packages needed for it, creating the scripts, updating the player controller script, updating the player controller script again, creating a new script for the camera logic for the lagging follow. Now it's going to check for compilation errors and set the camera up in scene to the correct position. It's adding the components, setting the properties for said camera and objects. Create a new script for player input setup. Logic to handle the player rotation. Now it's going to test the scene again, get debug logs and compilation errors. You can see the movement and everything's working, but we'll see I wasn't able to jump at all. So the ground checking was not working properly. You can see me test it again. I was unable to jump. And then also a problem with hitting the wall and going off of it. The character would come off askew and struggle to move sometimes. So here I tell it I'm unable to jump. It investigates the issue, gets the logs, creates a debug script to check the player states and why it's not allowing me to jump. It found the issue with the ground positioning, and it was never actually setting to ground contact true. And it updated and fixed it. Now I wanted it to adjust the camera sensitivity, as it was way too sensitive when I was using it. With a bit of movement on low DPI, it would swing the camera around the player completely. And it was just uncontrollable. So here it is adjusting it to make it the sensitivity. And then also set up the up and down rotation, vertical rotation when looking up and down. Yeah, setting up the scripts, create a new camera controller, control the logic. There you go. Now that was working. Now I told it about the error with the causing the player to go askew after it hits the wall. And I also told it to remove the extra camera in the scene. And told it with the up and down vertical rotation, it was not rotating around the camera, around the player. Instead, it was rotating around the fixed point of the camera. So I told it to fix that. Okay, I set it. I was getting too many issues with this complex camera system. I told it to redo it with a typical third-person camera system. It will still have the FOV with speed and clipping protection and so on. So at first it creates a new script for the camera system, taking a bit processing. Now it's going to replace the old components with the new components, sets up the script, executes the script into the scene. There you go. It swapped the old for the new. So now with the new stuff, it wasn't, the wall running and the wall mantling was not working, so I told it to please fix it now. It's adjusting the values to make sure it would work. Adding more checks to make sure when to wall run or when to mantle. So it's setting up the scene again to test it a bit easier. Saving the scene and all the adjusters it did. And now the problem with wall running I had, it was only running in a single direction, so you couldn't control it to go for the player to control it in the direction they want it. Now it's going to set up to have controlled direction when wall running. So basically the direction the player is moving at the start of the wall will be the direction the player goes on the wall. Oh yeah, and I also told it to set up Gizmo so I can just in scene view check everything that is happening. So here I asked it to adjust the ledge grab logic, as with the ledge grab was working sometimes, but not all the time, because if the object was rotated that I was grabbing on, it sometimes put you on the side of it instead of on top. So I wanted it to make sure about that. Then I also told it to delegate these tasks off to Coplay in Unity using Gemini 3 Pro. So there's less processing on Claude Code itself. And it creates a task, gives the master prompt to the Coplay in Unity attaches all the scripts to reference. And Gemini's 3 Pro Coplay is going to complete the tasks. Created its steps list. Yeah. You can see the task list is set up. Did 4 of them. So going to do the rest now. Checking the work it did, if it's correct. All the tasks it completed and changes it made. Now I told it to adjust the mantle so that it works the whole height of the player instead of just from like the lower part of the player to detect, have a bit more mantle range basically. So it's adjusting the scripts and it adjusted the ledge detection height and everything. Now next I gave it to set up prefabs for objects to in the scene, to set up in this parkour scene to use to jump on, and to set them up as prefabs to later use. So now it's setting up all the objects, the blocks and the pillars, setting up the wall run walls, giving them the correct layers so they work properly with the logic. Still setting up the layers. Now the assembly is complete. Once you set up the course layout, so I did in the end up manually setting up the course layout because its placement with the wall running walls wasn't entirely logical, so I ended up just adjusting it a bit for myself. You can see what it did. So now I told it to, I cleared the scene because I wanted a fresh start. It still had the prefabs. I told it to delegate the task to Coplay in Unity to, apologies for the flickering, to set up the actual scene with all the tags and everything needed. Because I was testing how Gemini would do the scene instead of Claude, if it would be more logical flow, but as well didn't understand how to place it with the wall running in mind. So I just manually adjusted it. You can see here, Claude delegated the task to Gemini. But Coplay or Gemini gave an error, so Claude continued on. I had an issue with the character control in the air, so I told it to give more ability to control the character in the air, which it is adjusting the values now. Adjusting the air control. Saved the scene after changing, checked the compiler errors, and here it's everything it's done. Now I told it to tell Coplay to generate textures, as Coplay has Nano Banana as a image generation option. You can see here it is running the texture generation at the bottom here. You can see the textures pop up, and Claude gave detailed instructions on exactly how the textures need to be. It does sometimes run into errors, but it's best to just let it go. So you can see the textures were created, so I just canceled the current Gemini, the Coplay and the Claude Code prompts, and just told it to apply the textures already created as materials to the objects in the scene. And you can see the materials are created. Now it's applying them to said objects. Applying the pillars now to the walls for the wall running. I didn't add to the other platforms at the back, but I just manually added them. I was getting a bit fed up with the third-person camera, so I asked it to adjust it to a first-person and to delegate this task to Coplay Gemini 3 Pro in Unity. There you go, it gets the task. It's running. Creating scripts and everything to set the camera up again. For some reason it created a new chat. I just switched back. It's still processing here and creating the scripts, reading the scripts, updating them to make sure they fit the prompt that I gave it. Execute the script. You can see now the camera is adjusted to the first person point of view of the character. Checks the compiler errors, screenshot to check if it's set up correctly. And all the tasks are complete and there's everything adjusted. Now I told it to set up the win and lose conditions and then the UI relating to that and delegate it to Coplay in Unity. It's running the prompt. Creating the logic to set up the UI script and then to set up the game objects in the scene. Was fixing compilation errors. Updated the game object script. And then you can see the UI pop in on the left. That's going to be for the game win and the game lose condition end screen, which is going to contain your time and then also a restart button. Checking if everything's done correctly. There you go. It's done setting that up. Now the restart button wasn't working, so I told Claude Code just to go and fix the restart button. Also, I don't know why it was seeing 2 Unity projects open as there wasn't 2. I checked, I even restarted, but it still ended up working. So I just let it run. Updates the game manager script to add the logic for the restart button. Logic in the death zone. Removing old unneeded stuff from the game manager. Updating the death zone script. And here you can see at the end working. But yeah, thank you for watching, and this is how I created a basic game using Coplay MCP incorporated with Claude Code. Thank you.